What if death is not the end? What if everything you've been told about the soul wasn't just incomplete, but intentionally designed to keep you small? Across centuries, across cultures, there are stories. Children who speak languages they never learned. Strangers with memories of lives they've never lived. Scars that mark wounds from another time. Coincidence? Or proof of a truth long hidden? This is reincarnation, the soul's eternal journey, a cycle of birth, death, and return. But here's the question they don't want you to ask. If reincarnation is real, what happens to the systems built on the fear of death? What happens to the powers that profit from controlling your afterlife? Because reincarnation liberates you. It tells you, you are not here by accident. You are not your body. You are not your name. You are the traveler, the witness, the eternal soul, crossing lifetimes to learn, to grow, to remember. And this isn't just ancient belief. Modern science has begun to catch up. Documented cases, peer-reviewed studies, children with impossible memories that check out down to the last detail. But why is no one talking about it? Why is this evidence buried? Because if you knew the truth, you would stop living in fear. You would stop playing small. You would stop believing this life is all there is. And when that happens, no one can control you. In this video, we pull back the veil. We explore the ancient teachings, the scientific proofs, the hidden agendas, and we answer the question no one dares to ask. What if you've lived many times before, and what if your soul is just beginning to remember? Pause, fade to black screen. Text only appears. Reincarnation, the evidence they don't want you to know, begins now. Part 1. The ancient origins of reincarnation. Belief. Long before modern religions, long before heaven, hell, salvation, there was a different understanding of the soul. Not as something you save, but as something that journeys. The Egyptians spoke of it. They called it the ka, the vital essence, and the ba, the part that could travel between realms, between lives. They believed. The soul returned again and again, refined, tested, reborn, until it became whole. In the East, this truth was never hidden. Hindu sages spoke of it in the Bhagavad Gita. The soul is eternal. It does not die when the body dies. As a man changes worn-out clothes, so the soul changes bodies. Not a metaphor, a blueprint, a cycle of death and return. The Buddhists called it samsara, the wheel of rebirth, not as punishment, but as opportunity. Each life, a classroom. Each death, a doorway. And in the West, the ancient Greeks knew this secret too. Pythagoras, not just a mathematician, but an initiate of the Egyptian mysteries. He taught that the soul migrates from one body to another, not only human, but animal, plant, any form, until the lessons are learned. Plato, the philosopher of forms, wrote of the soul's descent into flesh and of its inevitable return back to the source. He said, "The soul is immortal, frequently reborn, for nothing truly dies." Even the mystery schools of Egypt, Greece, and Persia whispered the same truth. The body is a vessel, temporary, but the soul is eternal, and the purpose of this cycle was never punishment. It was evolution. growth, remembrance. Each life, an initiation, each trial, a refinement of the soul's light. Because what better way to learn compassion than to live many lives? What better way to understand pain than to suffer, heal, and rise again? The ancients knew, we are not sinners waiting for salvation. We are travelers, pilgrims on a spiral path, ascending lifetime after lifetime toward divine perfection. And somewhere, deep within you, you've always known this, that the fears of death, the need for salvation, the promise of eternal punishment, they are stories written to control. But the truth is older than any religion. Your soul has walked this earth many times before, and now it is waking up to remember the journey that has only just begun. Text only on screen. The soul is not saved, it evolves. Part 2. Scientific studies and evidence of past lives. For centuries, reincarnation was dismissed as myth, a belief for mystics and dreamers, a fantasy, unfit for science. But what if science says otherwise? Meet Dr. Ian Stevenson, a psychiatrist from the University of Virginia. Methodical, precise, skeptical, and yet he dedicated his life to a single question. Can the soul remember? Over 40 years, he traveled across continents, Asia, the Middle East, the Americas, interviewing children, thousands of them. What he found shattered the boundaries of logic. 2,500 plus documented cases. Children between the ages of 2 and 6, who spoke of lives they never lived. Names, cities, families, deaths, details impossible to know. And yet, every word checked out. Take Swanlata Mishra, India. At just 3 years old, she sang songs in a dialect spoken 300 miles away. She described her past life, her husband, her home. Investigators followed her words and found the house, the man, every detail exactly as she claimed. Or James Leininger, Louisiana, USA. A toddler, haunted by nightmares of crashing planes, screaming about corsairs and a pilot named James. His parents terrified. When researchers dug deeper, they found the records. James Houston Jr., a World War II fighter pilot, shot down in Iwo Jima, flying a Corsair. Every detail real, but it didn't stop there. Many of these children carried birthmarks, wounds, scars, in the exact place their previous selves had died. One boy remembered being shot in the head. He was born with 2 moles, perfectly aligned with entry and exit wounds. Another spoke of a fatal knife wound to the chest, born with a deep, unexplainable scar right where the blade had struck. Coincidence or evidence that the body remembers? Text only on screen. The flesh forgets, the soul does not. Skeptics called it imagination, fantasy. But Dr. Stevenson refused to stop. He gathered medical reports, interviewed families, neighbors, eyewitnesses. Every case cross-verified, every claim tested. And what he found was undeniable. Patterns, the same memories, the same behaviors, the same nightmares playing out across the world. And he wasn't alone. The work continued. Dr. Jim Tucker, also from the University of Virginia, carried the research forward. One case, a boy named Ryan from Oklahoma. He spoke of being a Hollywood actor, named names, described a set, a street, a studio, even remembered how he died, heart failure, his family, doubtful. But researchers checked the archives and found a man, Marty Martin, an actor turned agent, who died exactly as Ryan described. These aren't isolated stories. They are patterns, repeated across cultures, religions, continents, children, too young to lie, too innocent to fabricate, remembering lives that match historical records. And the question grows louder. How do you explain what should be impossible? Science has a name for it: xenoglossy, the ability to speak a language never learned. Cryptomnesia, memories surfacing from unknown sources. But no term, no theory can explain this fully, because the truth is simple: the soul remembers. And what if you've done this too? Ever met a stranger who felt familiar? Ever visited a place and felt you'd been there before? Déjà vu, they call it. But maybe it's memory. Memory, not of this life, but of another. UD at 3, UD D39. Text only on screen. Reincarnation is not belief. It is evidence, ignored. And yet, the world stays silent. Why? Because if you knew death was not the end, control would crumble, the fear would vanish. Maybe science didn't disprove the soul. It simply wasn't ready to face it, because the flesh forgets, but the soul never does. The soul returning again and again, until you remember who you truly are. Part 3. Spiritual purpose behind reincarnation. What if you chose this life long before you were born? What if every joy, every heartbreak, every challenge was part of a plan your soul designed? This is the forgotten purpose of reincarnation. The ancients taught the soul is not here to be tested. It is here to remember. And this world is not a prison. It is a school, the ultimate classroom for consciousness itself. Before birth, the soul gathers with guides, teachers, elders. It reviews past lives, what was learned, what was left undone. And then the contract is written, the family chosen, the body selected, the challenges agreed upon, not as punishment, but as opportunity, because there are lessons that cannot be taught. They must be lived, felt, endured, survived. You chose your wounds. You chose your heartbreaks. You chose the betrayals, the losses, the pain, because you knew through them you would grow. Through them you would rise. This is karma, not a system of reward and punishment, but a law of cause and effect. Energy seeking balance, a spiral path, not of judgment, but of remembering. You meet the same souls, again and again. The mother you couldn't forgive, the lover you couldn't let go, the stranger who feels hauntingly familiar. These are karmic bonds, threads of unfinished stories, pulling you back together, until the lesson is complete. Text only on screen. You do not suffer for past mistakes. You return until you heal. And the greatest souls, the oldest souls, choose the hardest lives, not to be martyrs, but to accelerate the journey home. Pain was never your enemy. It was your greatest teacher. The wound was always the place where the light was meant to enter. Even modern science is catching up. Near-death experiences, NDS, thousands of people, clinically dead, returning with the same story, a tunnel of light, a life review, not of judgment, but of understanding. They feel everything they caused, joy, pain, love, suffering, and then a choice, go back or move on. Most choose to return. Why? Because their soul knows there is more work to do, more love to give, more lessons to learn. They return, changed, no longer fearing death, no longer chasing wealth, status, approval, because once you glimpse eternity, this world looks very different. Reincarnation is not a curse. It is grace. It is the soul's sacred journey through the fires of experience, back to itself. And when the lessons are complete, the cycle ends. The soul ascends, not to heaven, but to a state of knowing, beyond fear, beyond form, beyond death. You are not here to suffer. You are here to awaken. And everything, even the pain, is part of that awakening. The soul is not punished. It is perfected. And the moment you remember this, the fear dissolves, because you finally see you were never the victim. You were always the seeker, and the journey is just beginning. Part 4. Why reincarnation was hidden and suppressed. If reincarnation is real, why don't they teach it? Why is it not in every church, every school, every book? The answer is power. You see, reincarnation was not always heresy. Early Christians believed in it. The first Gospels, the original teachings of Jesus, spoke of the soul's journey, of being born again, not just in spirit, but across lifetimes. The early church fathers debated it openly. Even Origen, one of the most revered Christian scholars, wrote, "The soul has neither beginning nor end. It enters into bodies, as required." But then, something changed, something deliberate. The church grew, powerful, political. By the time of the Council of Nicaea, 325 AD, the message was rewritten. Reincarnation was erased, branded heresy, banned from doctrine. Why? Because a soul that knows it is eternal. A soul that knows it chooses its life, its lessons, its path, cannot be controlled. And control is the foundation of every empire. If you believe you are born once, if you believe this is your only chance, you become afraid. Afraid of sin, afraid of death, afraid of punishment. And fear makes you obedient. It forces you to kneel, to seek salvation from priests, from churches, from rulers who promise heaven and threaten hell. But what if you knew the truth? What if you knew that no one controls your soul but you? Reincarnation breaks the system. It turns sinners into sovereigns. It turns followers into seekers. Text only on screen. If death cannot hold you, neither can they. And that is the greatest threat of all. That is why modern religions, governments, and systems of power still push the lie of a single lifetime. Because when you believe this is your only shot, you trade freedom for security. You trade wisdom for obedience. You trade your soul for salvation. But the ancients knew better. The Egyptians, the Hindus, the Buddhists, the early Gnostics. They all spoke of the soul's return. They understood that life is not a straight line. It is a spiral, a cycle, a sacred journey home. So why did they bury this truth? Why did they rewrite the story? Because a soul that remembers cannot be ruled. It knows that no sin is eternal, no failure, final, no authority, higher than the divine spark within. That kind of soul does not need a priest. It does not need a king. It needs only to awaken, and that terrifies every system built on fear. Because once you remember, you stop playing by their rules. You stop fearing death. You stop being a pawn. You become the player, the creator, the soul, on its path back to source. And no system, no book, no threat can hold power over you ever again. And that is how salvation became a business. Selling heaven while hiding the key inside you all along. But the truth was never lost. It was only buried, waiting for you to remember. Part 5. How to remember your past lives and awaken. What if the lives you've lived are not lost? What if they are waiting just beneath the surface? Memories, wounds, wisdom, echoing through your fears, your dreams, your deepest instincts. Because the soul does not forget, it carries everything. The love, the loss, the triumphs, the regrets, and sometimes it bleeds through. That irrational fear you've carried since childhood. The gift you never learned, but somehow always knew. The places that feel familiar, though you've never been. These are not accidents. They are remnants, signs you've been here many times before. So the question is, how do you remember? How do you awaken the memories hidden deep within the soul? It begins with the willingness to see, because memory is not lost. It is buried. The first path is past life regression, a guided journey deep into your subconscious, beyond this body, this name, this life. And there, the memories rise, faces you've never met, but know. Places you've never seen, but feel like home. Stories so vivid, they break you open. Some cry, some tremble. Some remember wounds. So deep, they shaped lifetimes, but always they emerge changed. Because once you see your soul's journey, you cannot unsee it. And then come the dreams, those vivid, haunting dreams, where you are someone else, somewhere else, living a life you've never known. These are not fantasies, they are fragments, echoes of who you once were, breaking through as you sleep, and the signs are everywhere. Phobias with no cause, drowning, heights, fire, wounds from another time, talents no one taught you, music, language, art, gifts carried through lifetimes. Déjà vu, the eerie certainty that you've been here before. They are not random. They are the soul whispering, calling you to remember. Text only on screen. Your past lives are not gone. They are waiting for you to remember. Even the synchronicities, the people you meet, the places that call you, the strange pull. You can't explain. They are not coincidence. They are memory, contracts written long before you were born, because you came here with purpose. And everything, every moment, is leading you back. Back to who you truly are. Reincarnation changes everything. It turns life from random suffering into sacred journey. You begin to see your enemies as teachers, your heartbreaks as lessons, your wounds as portals to deeper wisdom, and the fear begins to die. You stop asking, why me? You start asking, what am I here to learn? Because once you understand, this is not your first life, and it will not be your last. You are eternal, a soul traveling through flesh and time, learning, evolving, remembering. And you chose this path. You chose this body. You chose these lessons. Not as punishment, but as initiation. The soul was never here for comfort. It came for growth, for fire, for light. It seeks light. It seeks awakening. And that is what you are doing now. The moment you choose to remember, the moment you ask, who was I? The veil begins to lift, and suddenly, life looks different. The world feels familiar. The pain makes sense, because it was never random. It was your path, all along. The only question now, are you ready to remember? Because once you do, there is no going back. You are not the body, destined to die. You are the soul, finally waking up to remember what was never lost. Final CT. A. If reincarnation is real, the question remains, where does the soul go between lives? What realms, what dimensions lie beyond the veil? Because between life and death, there is a place where your soul remembers everything. Join us as we enter the astral plane, a hidden dimension where souls travel, where thoughts become reality, where your consciousness is free. Join us as we explore the astral plane, accessing hidden dimensions. Because this isn't just knowledge, it's the map home.